All right, let's dive in today. We're headed to Limpopo, South Africa, for a look at the Capricorn District Municipalities projects.
Sounds intriguing.
It's March 13th, 2025, and we're going to, really try to get to the bottom of what's happening with their finances, timelines. How are these projects actually turning out?
Yeah, and I think a big focus for us today is to give people the tools to really demand better from their municipality.
Absolutely. Better service delivery, more transparency. We all deserve that.
We all do. And to do that, we've got a mountain of information here. Financial statements, meeting minutes, project plans, spatial development frameworks. We've even got tender documents.
Wow, that's a lot to dig through.
It is. It's a real 360-degree view of how the Capricorn District Municipality, or CDM, is operating.
And just to clarify for our listeners, CDM oversees several local municipalities, right?
Right, including Blouberg, Molemole, Polokwane, and Lepelle-Nkumpi.
Okay, so we'll be looking at Polokwane specifically, but always within the context of that larger district.
Makes sense.
So where should we even begin with all of this?
Well, I always say follow the money.
Okay, makes sense.
So CDM's adjusted budget for 2024-2025, I think this tells us a very, very interesting story.
Okay, lay it on me.
Their operational expenditure budget, and this is for the money they spend on like day-to-day running costs. It's a huge 1,224,376,000 rand.
Okay, wow.
And then you compare that to their capital expenditure budget. So this is the money for infrastructure, big projects.
Right.
And it's only 401,249,000 rand.
That's a big difference.
It is a big difference.
Why such a big emphasis on operational expenses?
Well, in the documents here, they point to a reduced municipal infrastructure grant allocation from the national government.
Ah, okay.
And that's the MIG. That's crucial for those big projects.
So less money from the MIG means less for those infrastructure projects.
Less for development, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's where I think it gets even more interesting. The documents also reveal that a big portion of their funding comes from interest on investments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on the surface, that sounds great, right? Like making money off their investment.
Well, sure.
But it does raise a question for me. Should a municipality be relying that heavily on investment income for its core functions?
Yeah, it's a good question to ask.
What if those investments don't do well?
Yeah, right, exactly. What happens then? It seems a little risky. It definitely raises questions about long-term sustainability, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Let's look at how CDM is managing a really large-scale project.
All right.
And we're going to look at the Safin Eisleben Matseki Ramacho Regional Water Scheme, RWS for short.
Catchy name.
It is.
So this is what, a big project for improving water supply?
Absolutely. Aims to improve the water supply for a whole region. And the tender documents for Phase 1, Contract A, they reveal that it's being done in stages.
Okay.
So it's a phased approach.
Phased approach. It sounds pretty ambitious.
It is.
Anything in those documents that stand out to you?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is the requirement for the contractors to use labor-intensive methods.
Okay, so what does that mean in practice?
Well, it means that they're really prioritizing job creation in the community.
Oh, okay. So community involvement, trying to get people employed.
Absolutely, trying to make sure the community benefits from this big project.
Okay, that's good.
It's definitely a positive.
But we have to see, if that good intention actually translates into results on the ground.
They do.
Are people actually seeing the benefit?
Right, that's the million rand question.
It is.
So let's pull up CDM's Q2 scorecard for 2024-2025.
Okay.
And see what we can uncover.
Let's see.
There's a project listed here for improving water supply in Blouberg Ward 09.
Okay.
At first glance, it seems like a success story. It's 93% completion.
93%. Wow. That sounds promising.
It does, but hold on a second.
Okay.
The scorecard also says that 0 households gained access to water from this project.
Wait, 93% completion, but no new households have water.
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense.
That's the kind of thing that raises a red flag for me.
Yeah.
Was the project planned badly? Were there delays in connecting those households?
Or could it be something else? Could it be, mismanagement of funds?
Yeah, these are questions we need to ask.
Definitely some digging to do there.
There is.
So we've got this big water project, underway.
Yeah.
But also questions about whether it's, actually delivering what it's supposed to.
Right.
What else is in this scorecard?
Let's look at their air quality monitoring efforts.
Okay.
Now, their target was to compile 4 reports on air quality,
Okay.
but they only managed to produce 1.
So they're falling behind a bit.
Yeah, and that suggests maybe they're falling short on environmental monitoring and enforcement.
Yeah, which is a pretty crucial aspect of what a municipality is supposed to be doing.
It is. It is. But, it's not all bad news.
Okay.
The scorecard does highlight some positive outcomes.
All right. Tell me something good.
Well, their support for small businesses, particularly, they provided incubation support to 15 SMMEs.
Okay, so at least they're making some progress with local economic development.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
But I have to say I'm still stuck on that 93% complete water project with no one actually getting water.
It's definitely something to keep in mind.
It just doesn't add up for me.
And that's the thing, right? We have to think critically when we're evaluating any municipality.
Yeah.
You don't just take the numbers at face value. You dig deeper, you ask questions, you demand accountability.
Couldn't agree more. Now I think it's time to dive into the part that I know our listeners are really interested in.
All right, let's do it.
Uncovering the potential corruption and inefficiencies.
Okay. Well, let's start with their claims about irregular expenditure.
Okay.
Now, their Q2 scorecard, it says 100% compliance with SCM regulations, which results in 0 irregular expenditure.
So a clean bill of health.
Well, maybe not so fast.
Okay.
We have to apply that critical thinking again.
Right, yeah.
Is this really truly a sign of good governance, or could it be something else?
Mm-hmm.
Could it be a lack of thorough auditing?
Or maybe even a cover-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we know, we're talking about a system where corruption can be deeply embedded.
Absolutely.
Come on, 100% compliance.
It does seem a little too perfect.
It does, especially when we already see those other red flags popping
All
up.
right.
What else should we be looking at for potential signs of corruption?
Well, forensic investigations are a good place to start.
Okay.
So the data from CDM's Service Delivery and Budget Implementation Plan Review Report.
So the SDBIP.
Yeah, the SDBIP, it reveals that they were planning to prepare 100% of investigation reports as requested.
Okay.
But the target wasn't revised even when budget changes happened.
So they're saying, we'll complete all these investigations, even when maybe they didn't have the money to do it.
It does seem that way.
Yeah.
Raises some serious suspicions.
Were these investigations actually done properly?
Right. Were they thorough? Were they unbiased?
Or was there pressure to maybe bury some findings?
It's possible.
Yeah.
These are questions that we need answers to.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got those questionable claims of compliance. We've got these potentially incomplete investigations.
What about procurement processes?
Yeah, let's look at those.
Because we know that can be a real area that's vulnerable to
Manipulation,
yeah.
We've analyzed some different tender documents, for example, for the community shared network and for the maintenance of their water quality laboratory. And a recurring theme is that bidders have to be registered with specific professional bodies.
Well, that makes sense on the surface, right?
Yeah.
It's a way to ensure quality control.
Yeah.
But what's the problem with that?
Well, it could be a way to limit competition.
Oh, I see.
So it might look reasonable.
But it could be creating a way to just favor certain companies.
Exactly. It's like this closed circle,
Keeps everyone else out.
Keeps everyone else out, and then it makes it easier to maybe manipulate the system.
Got it.
Now, what about public participation?
Public participation, yeah.
Isn't that a key part of good governance?
It should be.
It should be. CDM says they're all about it. They champion public participation.
Okay.
But their 2024-2025 IDP.
Their integrated development plan.
Right. It doesn't really have any concrete plans for actually involving citizens.
So they're talking the talk, but not walking the walk.
It seems that way. And that's a problem.
It is a problem.
Because without that public participation, you don't have transparency.
You don't have accountability.
Right, exactly.
And that just makes it easier for all those things we're worried about, the corruption, the mismanagement, to thrive.
It does.
Okay, so we've seen some cracks in their facade here.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got this disconnect between their financial picture and what's actually happening. Questions about their investigations, potentially rigged procurement, and now they're sidelining the public.
Right.
And this is supposed to be, serving the public.
This is supposed to be for the people.
Exactly.
And we're just getting started.
We're only scratching the surface.
Let's move on to their long-term vision for the district.
All right, what's the grand plan?
Okay, so their spatial development framework, it's outlined in these documents. It lays out how they see land use, infrastructure, and economic development.
So they have a plan, but the question is, does it actually address the real challenges that the Capricorn district is facing?
That's what we're here to find out.
Okay, let's unpack this vision and see if it holds up.
Let's start with agriculture. The SDF, it talks a lot about how important it is to develop agriculture.
Right.
Yet, when you look at their November 2024 budget statement, there's a huge decrease in the funding for agricultural services.
That seems like a contradiction. How can you say agriculture is a priority and then slash the budget?
Yeah, it does make you wonder.
It's like, I don't know, saying you're going to go on a diet and then filling your shopping cart with junk food.
Right.
It doesn't track.
It doesn't track. And then there's the issue of climate change.
Oh, yeah. Especially important in a region like Limpopo.
Absolutely. And the SDF, it does acknowledge those risks,
Okay.
particularly flooding, but the measures that they're proposing, they seem, I don't know.
Inadequate.
Yeah, inadequate given the limited budget that they've put towards environmental management.
So they're saying there's a problem, but they're not really putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, it's like we care about the environment, but not enough to really invest in protecting it.
Right.
And that disconnect between what they're saying and what they're doing, that's what erodes public trust.
It does. Okay, so we've got discrepancies in their long-term vision as well.
Mm.
This is starting to feel like a bit of a pattern here.
Yeah.
But I want to move on to a specific project now.
Okay.
I think it really highlights how CDM operates.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the redevelopment of the Molemole trading post.
Ah, yeah. This is an interesting one.
It is, right?
This project involves a public-private partnership, a PPP.
Okay, a PPP, and the details are all laid out in this PPP agreement.
They are, and there are some things in there that I think are potentially concerning.
Okay, PPPs can be tricky. What should we be looking out for in this agreement?
Well, one thing is the right of the private partner to levy user charges.
Come on.
And, on one hand, that can generate revenue, but
Okay.
it raises concerns about affordability, for the local businesses,
Mm-hmm.
the people living there.
So could this actually make inequality worse?
It could if people can't afford to use the trading post because the fees are too high,
Then what's the point?
Then what's the point? It's like building a beautiful new library and then charging people a fortune to walk in the door.
Right, exactly.
It defeats the purpose. And then there's the issue of risk allocation.
Okay.
This agreement, it seems to heavily favor the private partner,
Okay.
shifting a lot of the risk onto the municipality
So if things go wrong.
if things go wrong.
PM.
And the taxpayers are left holding the bag.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's a big risk. And it raises the question, are they really protecting the interests of the municipality?
Or are they just handing over control without really thinking about the consequences?
Yeah, it's a valid concern.
Okay, so we've got potential problems with the affordability, the risk allocation in this PPP. What does this tell us about how CDM approaches these kind of partnerships?
It suggests that maybe there's not enough careful consideration, enough due diligence being done.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're rushing into these agreements without really thinking about the long-term effects for the municipality.
So it's like they're signing a contract without reading the fine print.
Exactly.
And then they're surprised when things go wrong.
Yeah. And it's important to remember here, all of this that we're talking about, it's based on these documents that we've analyzed.
Right.
We don't want to jump to conclusions.
We're just raising questions.
Exactly. We're highlighting areas where things might be a little concerning.
And it's up to the citizens of the Capricorn district to, demand answers,
Absolutely.
to hold their officials accountable.
Hold them accountable.
Speaking of holding them accountable, I want to loop back to that irregular expenditure.
Okay. Yeah.
Where CDM saying, look, we've got 100% compliance. There's no problem here.
Right. Zero irregular expenditure.
But we've already talked about how that claim itself is a little suspicious.
Yeah, we have to be careful about taking things at face value.
Exactly. We're diving deep here.
We are.
And things are rarely as straightforward as they seem.
Rarely.
So for our listeners out there, what are some things that they should be looking for when it comes to irregular expenditure?
Yeah.
How can they spot those potential red flags?
Well, first of all, they need to understand that irregular expenditure, it's not always about outright theft.
Right.
Sometimes it's about negligence,
Incompetence.
incompetence, or just ignoring procedures.
So it's not always intentional, but it's still a problem.
It's still a big problem.
Yeah.
Because the consequences are serious.
Right.
It means that resources are being diverted away from the essential services, and it undermines public trust
It does.
in the municipality.
Okay, so we need to be paying attention to how CDM's managing its finances. What other areas should we be, scrutinizing?
Well, procurement is always a good area to look at. Always a potential hotbed for corruption. So look for things like, tenders being awarded to companies that have close ties to politicians, contracts that are inflated, that don't seem justified, or a lack of competitive bidding.
So basically we're looking for favoritism.
Favoritism.
Unexplained price hikes.
Unexplained price hikes.
And a lack of transparency in how those contracts are awarded.
Exactly.
Got it. What about service delivery? We already saw some of those questionable outcomes with that water project in Blouberg Ward 09.
Right.
What other signs should our listeners be aware of?
Look for projects that are consistently delayed or over budget.
Yeah.
Lack of maintenance of existing infrastructure.
Okay.
Or a disconnect between the services that are promised and the services that are actually delivered.
So it's not just about whether a project is completed, it's about the quality of the project.
Quality.
Whether it's done on time and whether it's actually meeting those needs of the community.
Meeting the needs, that's key. And don't forget about public participation.
Public participation, right.
CDM might say all the right things about involving citizens, but the reality might be very different.
So how can citizens make sure their voices are heard?
Well, first of all, attend those council meetings.
Okay.
Those meetings are open to the public.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to see how decisions are being made.
Right.
To voice your concerns directly to your elected officials.
It's about, making your presence known.
Making your presence known, reminding them that they work for you.
Exactly.
And then communication. Write letters.
Okay.
To your ward councilor, the mayor, even national government representatives.
Yeah.
Use email, social media, traditional media. Talk about the issues that are important to you.
A single voice can be powerful.
It can be powerful.
But it's even more powerful when it joins a chorus.
When it joins a chorus of others.
Right. But what if you hit a wall?
Mm-hmm.
What if you're raising these concerns and you're just being ignored?
Don't give up. Okay.
Persistence is key.
Persistence.
Form community groups.
Okay.
Connect with people who are like-minded.
Yep.
Organize peaceful protests. Demonstrations. Change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It takes time.
It takes effort.
And a refusal to accept things as they are.
So it's about channeling that frustration.
Into action.
And
refusing to be silenced.
Refusing to be silenced. And there are organizations out there, whose whole mission is to support citizens in this fight for transparency and accountability.
Okay.
Reach out to them, learn from them, join them. We can make a difference together.
Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about some specific projects that I think might be of interest.
Okay.
To investors, residents, the general public.
Yeah, great idea.
And remember, this isn't an exhaustive list.
No, of course not.
But it's based on what we've seen in these documents.
Right.
So a good place to start would be, that Blouberg Ward 09 water supply project.
Yes.
We talked about this earlier. It's 93% complete.
Right.
But failed to connect any new households to the water supply.
Yeah, big concern.
So that raises questions about, how effective was this project? Was that money, over 6 million rand, was that money well spent?
Good questions to ask.
Definitely a cause for concern. And, for investors looking at this, they need to be really scrutinizing this project.
They do.
All right, so moving on, we've got the Safin Aislabin Matseki Ramat Show Regional Water Scheme.
Another big one.
It is.
Multi-phase project.
Right. And it's meant to really provide a reliable water supply to a large region.
Absolutely. Phase 1, Contract A, that's already underway.
Okay.
But we have to keep an eye on its progress and the tendering process for those future phases.
Because, we talked about that potential for manipulation.
Yeah.
We need to make sure those processes are transparent.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. The IDP mentions plans to upgrade those existing wastewater treatment works. And potentially building some new ones.
Right.
This is crucial.
It is. It's critical for investment because if you don't have adequate wastewater treatment, you've got huge problems.
Public health.
Public health.
The environment.
The environment.
So investors who are, looking for sustainable investment.
Sustainable investment.
This should be an area that they're really paying attention to.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk roads.
Okay.
The IDP highlights the need for upgrading, maintaining a number of roads.
Yeah.
Including the D19 from Molemole to Gamathapo, and the D3397 from R567 to Schoonjelig and Tillickerang.
Now, those could be attractive to investors, stable long-term returns. But again, we need to be sure those contracts are awarded fairly. And that the work is high quality.
Because these are projects that are going to impact those everyday lives.
Exactly.
Accountability and quality control are essential.
Yeah.
Okay, another area they mention is developing an agricultural development strategy.
Interesting.
And specifically, Polokwane Municipality. They've got plans for an agro-processing site and a fresh produce market.
Now, those seem to align with the SDS emphasis on agriculture, but we talked about those budget cuts.
Right.
So, again, it raises questions about their commitment.
Yeah, we have to look beyond what they're saying and look at the actual budget.
actual.
Where's the money going? Now, let's shift to projects that are really going to impact residents directly.
Okay, yeah,
The general public.
let's do it.
The IDP, it mentions a bunch of projects related to community facilities, mobile units, schools, safety and security infrastructure. So, for example, there's a project for Matthew Fosa Secondary School, another one for N. Nidal Primary School,
Okay,
which is replacing that closed Batuma Primary School.
right.
For parents out there, residents, they need to be paying attention to these projects, making sure they're meeting the needs of their kids.
Absolutely.
Because education, that's the foundation of a thriving community.
It is.
And these projects need to be planned well, funded, and executed properly.
Yeah. What about safety and security?
Safety and security, right.
Is that addressed?
So the IDP, it outlines plans for police stations, fire stations, in a number of locations.
Okay.
So residents should be using this information to make sure that their communities are protected and to hold the municipality accountable.
Hold them accountable.
Because safety and security, those are basic rights.
They are.
Those shouldn't be compromised.
No, absolutely not.
Now, let's talk about something that's so important these days, the community shared network.
Yeah.
This is all about improving internet access.
Connectivity.
Right. And we know how crucial that is for education,
Economic development.
social inclusion.
Everything.
And the tender documents for this project, they talk about the municipality's commitment to bridging the digital divide.
It's a good goal.
Which is good, but
Right.
we talked about that requirement for bidders to be part of specific professional bodies.
Right. Yeah.
And how that might limit competition.
And potentially stifle innovation.
Yeah.
It's about finding the right balance
Right.
between making sure things are high quality, but also allowing for a competitive environment.
Right.
One that's going to bring in new ideas and benefit everyone.
Okay, so let's move on to another project that's vital
Go.
for environmental sustainability, maintaining the water quality laboratory.
Right.
This lab, it's playing a big role in monitoring our water,
Making sure it's safe.
making sure it meets those safety
And
standards,
clean water is essential.
non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
And the tender documents, they talk about how important it is to comply with the South African National Accreditation System, SANAS,
Okay.
which is good, but
What?
again, we need transparency in that tender process.
Absolutely.
And we need to be sure that whoever they pick to do this work, they have the experience, they have the ability to get it done right.
To get it done right.
And it all comes back to transparency.
Transparency.
We need to know that contracts are being awarded based on merit, not because of who you know,
Right.
not because of some corrupt practice.
Exactly.
All right, now it's something that's really important for economic development, that SMME incubation support program.
Oh, yeah, supporting small businesses.
So the municipality, they did provide some support to 15 SMMEs, which, shows a commitment to entrepreneurship.
It does, yeah.
But we have to make sure that support is open to everyone,
Everyone, yeah.
not just people with connections.
Absolutely. Equal opportunity is essential.
Equal opportunity, right?
So that resources are allocated fairly, everyone has a chance to succeed.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the municipality's SDPIP, It outlines some plans for coordinating disaster management advisory forums.
Okay, important in a region like this, prone to disasters,
It is.
especially with climate change and the increasing, frequency of extreme weather events.
Being prepared is more crucial than ever.
Absolutely.
And they also highlight a commitment to an employee wellness program.
Oh, that's good.
Looking after the people who work for them, trying to promote their health and well-being.
Yeah, and that can lead to a more supportive work environment.
Right.
Happier employees, more productive employees.
Investing in your workforce, that's always a smart move.
Always.
Now, the IDP mentions the purchase of 2 vehicles in the current fiscal year.
Okay.
And this might seem routine,
Yeah.
but it's a good chance to look at their procurement processes.
Right.
Make sure they're getting value for money.
We don't want them cruising around in luxury SUVs while basic services are underfunded.
Exactly.
Now, their SDBIP, it highlights that they're committed to submitting those monthly budget statements to Treasury
Okay.
within 10 working days after the month ends.
So they're hitting those deadlines.
Hitting the deadlines.
That's good.
Yeah.
That shows some commitment to financial transparency.
It does.
Transparency is so important for building trust
Absolutely.
and making sure that public funds are being managed responsibly.
Responsibly.
Now, their SDBIP, it also outlines a goal of providing 100% of the requested personal protective equipment
PPE.
to employees who qualify.
Okay, so they're committed to worker safety.
Worker safety, that should always be a top priority.
It should be.
And their SDBIP also highlights a commitment to maintaining those ICT systems, computer equipment, licensing.
So their IT infrastructure.
Right.
Being proactive, making sure things run smoothly.
It's about investing in the backbone of their operations so they can deliver those services well.
Efficiently.
Efficiently, right.
Now, remember that shortfall in the air quality monitoring reports where they aimed for 4 and only produced 1.
Right.
Raises questions again about their commitment to environmental monitoring.
Do they have what they need? Do they have the staff? Do they have the equipment to do this job properly?
Good questions. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Okay.
And their Q2 scorecard, it shows that they also fell short of their target for coordinating those municipal managers' forums.
So those forums, they're meant to be a space where different municipalities can work together.
Right, collaboration.
Collaboration.
But they only managed 1 meeting
out of 4.
instead of the targeted 4.
So a missed opportunity there.
Missed opportunity for collaboration. And that can have a ripple effect,
It can.
hinder progress on those shared goals.
Now, on a more positive note, their Q2 scorecard, it does highlight that they achieved something. They developed and implemented a municipal procurement plan.
Okay, that's good. That's a step towards more transparency,
It is.
accountability in those procurement processes.
And that's essential, right?
It is.
Because a good procurement plan, that can help prevent corruption
Prevent corruption.
and make sure that money is being used properly.
Public funds used wisely. Now, their SDBIP outlines a target of conducting 6 performance reviews
Okay.
in this fiscal year.
So those reviews, they're important for giving feedback to employees, right?
Feedback, identifying areas for improvement, recognizing achievements.
So it should be about growth,
Growth.
development, not just checking boxes.
Exactly.
Okay, they also have a goal of compiling 60 environmental compliance monitoring inspection reports.
Okay, so those inspections, they're crucial for finding any potential environmental violations, making sure the municipality is operating sustainably,
It's about holding themselves accountable,
holding themselves accountable
making sure they're protecting the environment for everyone.
for the future. Their SDBIP also emphasizes their commitment to submitting quarterly MSCOA data strings to Treasury within 30 working days after each quarter.
Now, MSCOA, that's the Municipal Standard Chart of Accounts, right?
That's right.
And that's basically a standardized way of recording and reporting financial information.
It is. It's like a universal language for municipal finances.
Right. Makes it easier to track spending, to compare how different municipalities are doing.
Exactly.
And sticking to those reporting deadlines.
Sticking to the deadlines.
That shows transparency.
Transparency.
A commitment to accountability.
Accountability.
Good signs. So what else is on their agenda?
Well, Their IDP outlines a plan to conduct one hazard identification and risk assessment.
IIRA.
IIRA activity.
So that's about, looking at the workplace.
The workplace, yes.
Finding those potential hazards.
Identifying hazards, assessing risks, and then coming up with measures to control those risks.
So it's about being proactive.
Proactive, yeah.
Creating a culture of safety.
A culture of safety.
Where everyone is looking out for those potential problems.
Exactly.
And their IDP also mentions the purchase of 2 vehicles.
Again,
right. Seems like a recurring theme.
Does.
But, we've got to keep an eye on it.
Got to make sure it's all above board.
Make sure they're getting value for money.
Value for money.
Now, the IDP also outlines a plan to coordinate one youth dialogue in the current fiscal year.
Oh, that's great. Giving young people a voice.
It is. And, they're the future of these communities.
They are.
So their perspectives should be valued. They should be part of the decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Their SDBIP highlights their commitment to adopting a credible annual budget, as per the Municipal Finance Management Act.
The MFMA. By May 30th of each year.
Sticking to that legal requirement.
Sticking to the rules.
It shows a commitment to good financial management.
Responsible financial management. The IDP also outlines their plan to conduct one HIRA activity in the current fiscal year.
So they're continuing those efforts to make the work environment safer and healthier.
Yeah.
Good to see that they're not letting that slip.
No.
And they're also mentioning the purchase of 2 vehicles, again, in the current fiscal year.
Okay, are we seeing a pattern here?
It's definitely a pattern. We're going to be looking into those procurement details.
Absolutely.
So what else is on the municipality's agenda?
Their SDBIP highlights their commitment to submitting mandatory reports of the Speaker to Council.
So that's about keeping the council informed about the legislative process, right?
Exactly.
But their Q2 scorecard reveals they actually fell short of their target.
Oh.
They were supposed to submit 4 reports, but they only submitted 1.
Okay.
That's concerning.
It is. Why the delay?
Why the delay?
What's going on?
There does make you question their commitment to transparency and accountability.
Yeah, we need to make sure they prioritize these reports.
Timely and accurate reporting is crucial.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what other projects are they working on?
Well, their SDBIP reveals a bit of a shift in priorities when it comes to IT.
Okay.
Initially, they had no target for procuring new computer equipment, but then they revised that approach. And they allocated a budget of over 2 million rand to procure 15 pieces of computer equipment.
So a pretty significant investment there.
It is. It seems like they're recognizing that they need to keep up with technology.
To stay current.
To stay current.
But we have to make sure that this investment, it comes with a plan, right?
A strategic plan.
A strategic plan.
For how they're going to use it, how they're going to implement it.
Because it's not just about buying shiny new gadgets.
Exactly. It's about using technology strategically.
To improve efficiency, transparency,
Citizen engagement.
Citizen engagement. All right. Their SDBIP also outlines a plan for an SMAME exhibition.
Okay.
Although it doesn't give specific numbers in terms of how many businesses will be there or, how many people will attend.
Right. But showcasing local talent.
Yeah.
Fostering entrepreneurship, that's crucial for a healthy economy.
It is, but we also have to make sure that their support for small businesses goes beyond just, putting on an exhibition.
Beyond the exhibition, yeah.
It's about access to training.
Mentorship.
Funding.
Funding opportunities.
Creating that whole ecosystem.
An ecosystem for success.
Exactly. Now, the budget documents, they don't give us specifics on their revenue collection targets or strategies, but we know that's a huge priority for them.
Absolutely.
To be financially sustainable.
You've got to have the money to operate.
Right. But it's about that balance.
Right.
Making sure they're collecting enough revenue to function, but also that those charges for services are affordable.
Affordable, right, so that people can actually pay them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The municipality's SDBIP also says they're going to complete a bunch of interventions based on recommendations from the Green Drop program.
Ah, the Green Drop program. That's the one that assesses wastewater treatment works, right?
That's right. They're making sure those facilities are meeting national standards.
Important stuff.
Really important stuff. And this commitment to improving wastewater management, that's a good sign.
It is. It shows that they're taking the environment and public health seriously.
But we have to make sure these interventions are sustainable.
Long term.
Long term, right?
Not just a quick fix.
It can't just be about a quick fix. It's got to be about investing in those long-term solutions.
The infrastructure, the technology, building the capacity to operate those facilities properly.
So that they're serving the community for years to come.
Yeah, thinking ahead.
Okay. So industrial park development, it's another thing that's on their radar. Although the documents aren't very specific on what their plans are there.
Right. But industrial parks, they can be a huge boost for the local economy if they're done well.
Huge. But we need to make sure that they're developed sustainably, responsibly.
Absolutely.
Minimizing that environmental impact and making sure they actually benefit the people in the community.
Right. It should be about shared prosperity, not just lining the pockets of a few.
Now, we don't have a ton of details on their plans for supporting community policing forums, but we know community policing is a really important part of crime prevention.
Absolutely. And building trust between the police and the community.
That's key. That's key.
Now, their SDBIP, it highlights their commitment to recruiting good people, retaining them, having good labor relations.
It's so important, right?
It is. It's the foundation of any good organization.
Especially one that's providing those essential services.
Yeah, and when you invest in your workforce, you're investing in the community.
You are. And their IDP, it also highlights their commitment to, really following the Municipal Systems Act in everything that they do.
So accountability, transparency, responsiveness.
Serving the needs of the community.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
And their SDBIP emphasizes compliance with the MFMA.
The Municipal Finance Management Act.
The Municipal Finance Management Act.
Yeah.
In all their financial dealings.
Okay, so making sure every rand is spent wisely, that the municipality's finances are managed properly.
For the benefit of the whole community.
For the whole community, yeah.
Now, their SDF, it talks about using the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act,
SPLMA, yeah.
as a guide for their spatial planning.
So that's about creating those vibrant, livable communities, right?
A sustainable community.
Yeah, sustainable community. It's about balancing development with protecting the environment.
And the well-being of the people who live there.
Exactly.
Their SDF also acknowledges those risks of climate change. And it lays out some strategies for dealing with those risks.
So mitigation and adaptation, right?
It's about recognizing that this is a global crisis, that it's urgent.
And taking action.
And taking those concrete steps to make the district more resilient, more sustainable.
Yeah, building a better future.
So what else are they doing to tackle these 21st century challenges?
Well, we don't have all the details, but it seems like renewable energy is definitely on their radar.
Makes sense.
As a potential area for investment.
Renewable energy, it's good for the environment. It's good for the economy.
Creates jobs.
Creates jobs. It's a win-win.
A win-win.
And e-governance platforms, that's something they might explore as well.
Yeah, that's a growing trend, in local government.
It is. And it has the potential to really change the way citizens engage with their municipality.
Make things more transparent.
More transparent.
Easier to access those government services.
So it's about using technology
to empower citizens.
To build a more responsive government.
More accountable government.
Now, we don't know specifically what their plans are for cultural heritage sites, museums.
Okay.
But those are areas with so much potential.
Yeah, investing in cultural heritage, it's about celebrating the history.
Attracting tourists.
Creating a sense of pride.
Pride, belonging.
Belonging. It's about leaving a legacy.
Leaving a legacy.
For future generations.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground on this deep dive into the Capricorn District municipalities projects.
We have.
From, building roads and water systems to supporting small businesses and tackling climate change.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But this is just the beginning, right?
It is. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Our listeners, they need to keep digging.
Keep digging.
Look at those documents we talked about. Do their own research. Ask those tough questions.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Hold those officials accountable.
Accountable. Demand better.
Demand better. Transparency, accountability, ethical governance.
Those aren't just buzzwords.
No. They have a real impact on people's lives.
A real impact.
And it's up to all of us to make sure that our municipality is working for the community.
Working for the people.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep digging, keep questioning, and keep demanding better.
We'll see you next time.